There is a verse in Parashot Kedoshim that many of us know by heart. Ve'ahavta lerecha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Rabbi Akiva called it Klal Gadol BaTorah, the great principle of the Torah. It is a foundational teaching upon which so much else depends. But the Torah does something remarkable. It commands us once to love our neighbor, but it commands us again and again and again to love the stranger. In the Talmud, the rabbis teach that the Torah warns us about the stranger in 36 places, and some say even more. 36 repetitions of the same idea. You should love the stranger. To love one's neighbor is already a profound demand. But there is something about the neighbor that makes the commandment, at least in theory, because there are some bad neighbors, but it makes it more accessible. A neighbor is someone who lives near you, someone whose life overlaps with yours, someone who likely shares elements of your world, of your language, rhythms, assumptions. Even when there are differences, there is familiarity. There are shared reference points. Neighbors often inhabit similar social and economic spaces. They send their children to similar schools. They shop in the same places. They worry about similar things. Even in disagreement, there is a common ground that makes relationship possible. We build neighborhoods that reflect us, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously. We cluster with those who resemble us in culture, in background, and outlook. And over time, similarity becomes comfort. And so, loving the neighbor, while still a moral achievement, rests on a foundation of recognition. I see something of myself in you. Your life makes sense to me. But the Torah turns insistently toward the stranger. The stranger is something else entirely. The stranger is the one who does not fit easily into our categories, the one whose language we may not fully understand, whose customs feel unfamiliar, whose assumptions about the world may unsettle our own. The stranger introduces distance and often some discomfort. The Hebrew word ger carries layers of meaning. The resident alien, the outsider living among you, the one who is present but not fully integrated. It's not an enemy, but not quite one of us. To encounter the stranger is to encounter difference that does not resolve so quickly. And it is precisely here that the Torah places its greatest moral emphasis. It says, the stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 34. This verse does not ask for tolerance. It does not suggest polite distance. It calls for love, using the same language as the command regarding the neighbor. But it adds something the earlier verse does not. Memory. For you were strangers. The Torah roots the command in experience. You know what it feels like to be the outsider. You know what it feels like to live in a place where your language, your customs, your very identity mark you as different. You know what it feels like to be vulnerable, to be dependent on the goodwill or the hostility of others. This is historical memory that is turned into a moral obligation. The Sifrei, a classic rabbinic midrash, comments on this verse. Do not say, since I was humiliated, I will humiliate others. Rather say, since I was humiliated, I will not humiliate others. Memory can harden a person, or it can soften them. The Torah insists on the second. Maimonides, the Rambam, deepens this further. In his Mishneh Torah, he writes that the love of the stranger is a separate command in addition to the love of one's fellow. It carries its own weight. Why? Because it requires more. The medieval commentator Ramban also explains that loving another as oneself is already difficult. To extend that love towards someone who is fundamentally different, who may not reflect us back to ourselves, requires an expansion of the heart. In our own time, this teaching feels both very urgent and very challenging. We live in a world that is increasingly interconnected. Technology collapses distance, cultures meet and overlap in ways that were once unimaginable. And we know that there will be more and more mass migrations as time goes by. The world has become, in many ways, a global village. And yet, the human response to difference has not always kept pace with this reality. There is a tendency to retreat into familiar spaces, to surround ourselves with those who think as we do, speak as we do, see the world as we do. This is our tribal instinct. The differences that instead of becoming opportunities to encounter can become sources of anxiety or of division, and the stranger remains strange. The Torah does not deny this reality. It does not pretend that differences disappear. Instead, it places the stranger at the center of moral life. Remember, 36 times. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote that the test of faith is whether we can make space for the one who is not like us. A society that protects only those who belong easily is not yet a moral society. The Torah's vision is more demanding. It imagines a community in which the outsider is not invisible, in which the stranger is not merely tolerated, in which the experience of being a stranger becomes the foundation for how we treat others. This is not simple. It asks us to resist the pull of comfort, to remain open when instincts push us back to close ourselves, to recognize humanity even when familiarity is absent. It asks us to remember. Perhaps that is why the Torah repeats this command so many times, because it is difficult. Each repetition is a reminder. The measure of a society is not how it treats those who belong easily, but how it treats those who do not know. To love the neighbor is to build community, but to love the stranger is to expand it. And in that expansion, the Torah suggests we come closer to what it means to be holy.